get things set up on my end.
Yep. All right, I think we're live.
Yay. I'll just
Can you double
finish
check it?
setting.
And
I'll just set some things up. I'm
Yep.
a little behind.
Welcome everyone. If you can see us and hear us, let me know.
I'm just realizing that we never got you art that we talked about.
Oh yeah, we got you. We
Yeah,
got you, Art. You're all set.
you're next.
I got the
Maybe by
green
the
wall.
next one.
Yeah, I gotta
I feel
figure
like
out what I
that's gonna
want.
be the ongoing thing for book
I
club
don't think
is,
I'm ever. It takes me so long to pick art.
well, and it's also been like 4 years already.
Yeah. Um, I think I should just get one big piece of art
I think so too.
rather than a few small ones,
You could get 3 medium-sized ones.
but like related.
Yeah,
Maybe like a dragon flying over 3 photos.
you can see it.
That maybe that should be the vision. Oh yeah, this is your debut of your office like finished, eh?
Yeah, other than my Instagram,
Oh
I
yeah,
did like a really quick
yeah,
video,
yeah.
but that's kind of it.
Um, you'll have to put together the full video of the process.
Yeah, I need to piece all that together. It's gonna be a lot.
How is everyone doing today?
Yes, let's move on to just us chit-chatting.
Yeah.
Welcome to book club. How is everyone's day going? We'll just probably like wait a couple minutes and let everyone get all situated. What is everyone currently reading right now?
Just finished the book 20 minutes ago.
I love
that
the initiative.
that that is the time crunch. That's how I work. I actually finished it really early this month, and
You did.
I think I need to
You finished
kind of
it before I did
yeah.
this time.
I finished it like the first week, and now it's like so far out of my mind that I feel like I should have waited till 20 minutes before.
Yeah, so it'd be fresh in your
Yeah.
mind. I had to like go back through and remind myself of certain things that happened. Oh, we have another one finished 4 hours ago.
Oh,
Love it.
not like
Scott and
Megan last
I,
time finishing 4 hours later.
Scott and I are both procrastinators usually. We haven't been for book club, but in life we typically are.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it.
Yeah. I respect the procrastination.
Yeah.
Nothing gets me more motivated than a very tight deadline.
All right. Should we
Yeah, let's
just jump right in?
jump in.
Okay, so for everyone joining, hope you know that we are going to be talking about Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez today. This is a brand new release, just came out April 1st, I want to say. So, super new release. And we're going to just jump right into some initial thoughts, which is our first, like, we just like to talk about like what we thought of the book going into it, kind of judge it by its cover, that kind of situation, go over our experience. So for me, this was one of my most anticipated releases of 2025. So you could say that my expectations were very high, probably too high. I think I've read almost everything else that Abby has written. Maybe other than like a couple of her short stories and novellas. I think I've read pretty much everything, and I've really grown to love her books. I had a little bit of trouble with some of her older books, but all of her newer works I like have loved. So I was really excited. And like pretty much every other book club book this year, I went into this one blind, but this one was like super blind. Like I didn't know anything about it. I actively ignored everything on social media because I didn't want anything. I didn't want to know anything going into it. So I had no idea what this book was about. I had no idea what the subject matter, nothing. I really, really love the cover, and I love how, I don't know if anyone else picks up on this, but all of her books always have, usually it's a dog, one time it was a goat, but I always love that there's like an addition of an animal on the cover, and usually the animal like plays like a pretty significant role in the story, which I just love that little tidbit, so I was excited that it continued with this one. And yeah, basically my expectations were super high, but I knew nothing about it. Those are my initial thoughts.
I didn't know anything about it at all, and I knew that you liked her previous works, and that was about it. I
Yeah.
think you had told me like that there was like a person with anxiety in a different one.
Yep,
Uh,
yours truly.
yeah, and so then I was like, oh, this seems interesting as someone with anxiety.
Yeah.
It seems like she writes interesting characters then.
Yeah.
So that's all I knew is that you liked her previous books and that there's a dog on the cover.
Yeah.
And then I jumped in.
Yeah. Pretty much it. Seems like a couple other people went in blind, not knowing anything about it. So that's good. I always like those. Let's jump into some ratings. I will go first as usual. I rated this book 4.25 stars. I actually had a little bit of a hard time rating this one because while I did enjoy it, I also had some issues with it, and I think my expectations were too high. So I tried to take that into consideration with my review. It's like it was my own fault for having such high expectations. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It made me laugh out loud a couple of times, and it also made me really sad. So I felt a lot of things while reading it, which is what I like in books, is things that make me feel things. I really liked that the couple's problems were rooted in reality and what I like to call real world problems, and not something that's just like a made up miscommunication like we see in some other romance books. Like I really felt like they were issues that a real couple would be facing. Um, I did think that the expectation or their issues were a little bit repetitive at times, and but I really felt like the struggle within their relationship, and I like deeply felt that. But my main issue was with the ending. I just felt like it was too rushed, and like I said, the middle part was a little bit repetitive. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cute, and it was a lot deeper than I expected. What your rating?
I gave it a 4,
Which is high praise for
which is
you.
pretty good. I thought it was gonna be a 4.5, depending on how the ending happened, and then the ending, like you said, was kind of rushed.
Yeah.
I liked the characters. I liked the writing of it. It felt a little um, quick at times, but
Yeah.
um, for the most part, I also laughed out loud and felt emotions, which I guess is an okay thing. Um, but I felt like um, I could kind of understand the characters in like their deep connection kind of thing, and so it kind of talked to me in that way, and so I really wanted to rate it like higher, and then it ended, and I was like, oh, that was kind of lackluster for what I was expecting from it.
Yeah. I feel like this book, you and I had a lot of good discussions
Yeah,
about it after the fact, which I think was good.
yeah,
I think the fact, like, if a book can make you like talk about it with
right,
someone else, I feel like that's kind of a
right.
good sign, whether you enjoyed
Yeah,
it or not.
and
Like, you got to give it something.
and because I
But
finished it before you, I was like, come on, read it so I can
yeah,
talk to you about it. Come
yeah.
on.
Um, but it seems like a lot of people had mixed feelings on this book, which will bring us to our group rating. Um, overall, the group rated it 4, which I think is pretty good for
Yeah.
the group. It's not the best we've had, but it's also not the worst.
It was
And from
interesting
the
watching
comments,
the rating on this one because it started anyone who read it early was rating it really high, and then
Yeah.
as the weeks went on, it just started started dropping.
Yeah. From the comments and reviews that I saw, it seems like you either like really enjoyed it or you really did not. Um, so I saw a lot of split. I didn't see a lot of like middle
Yeah.
of the road, where it was just like fine. I know there's a couple in the comments who kind of said it was fine. But yeah, I did see, and I will also say that I also saw that online, not just in our book club. This was kind of a book that was either well received or got a lot of hate. Like it was really split, which I
Yeah.
think happens with like really anticipated releases like ones like this. So it didn't surprise me that it was split like that, even if I didn't understand some of the arguments. Anyways, we can move on to the discussion, go through some of you guys' comments, and talk through the book a little bit more in detail.
All right. Um,
Just before we get into that, Megan, to answer your question, I don't know how many people have already read the author. I know when we announced the book, it was pretty split on people who had read the author before. Um, so it was my understanding it was pretty mixed. I think a lot of people who are familiar with the author probably liked it a little bit more or willing to rate it higher because they're more familiar with her style. Um, but I don't know. I've seen mixed. But anyways, we can get into the comments.
I read it on audiobook. I don't know if anyone else did audiobook.
Yeah. This was actually really interesting. Um, Scott did on audio. I physically read the book this time. I've done audio for other book clubs, but I picked up my copy and read it that way. But this prompted like a really interesting discussion on Fable. I don't know if anyone saw the comments on there, but apparently there was some discrepancy with the cover art with the character on like the physical book. She has like dark brown hair.
But it's supposed to be black, according to the
It's supposed
book.
to be black in the book, but apparently the audiobook cover, her hair was red.
It's kind of red in the thumbnail that I have for this one, even. So,
So then, like, there was this comment here was about like if maybe she was gonna like dye it later in the book.
yeah.
Um, but I will say this prompted one of my like very minor pet peeves when it comes to books, and just that like when a character is described a certain way and then it doesn't match on the cover. And the most frequent thing is when the character, and it happened in this one, the character was described as being really curvy. And like, that's not curvy. And it bothers me just so much because it's right there. And I'm just like, just make it match.
yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
just
not
want to
that hard.
see
Or like the hair color. Like, it's
the hair
like
color.
so
Yeah.
early in the book.
I'm
that-
just like, get these descriptions, and then when you like see the cover, it just, I don't know, it doesn't match. So it drives me a little bit crazy when that happens.
Um,
But
for the people who did audiobook, I really liked it on audiobook. They had the two um, narrators for it, one for each of the characters, and about halfway through. So Megan and I, when we were dating, I would play video games on the couch, and she would watch TV, and I kept thinking, I know this voice from something, and when I looked it up, it was because she was binging. What was it? The reboot of 90210.
90210. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, I knew the voice because I would get so invested in her shows, but like I would only hear it because I would be too busy playing video games. And
Yeah,
so,
you'd be like on your controller and be like, what did that guy
yeah,
do?
so then I knew who it was from that show. Anyways,
Yeah.
he did a good job, and the woman who did Samantha's voice did a good job as well. And I really liked the audiobook. I think it made it um, more enjoyable for me listening to it.
I don't know his real name, but it was Liam in 90210.
Yeah, I forget his name. Oh, hold on, I'll look it up.
I always like when audiobooks have dual or like group casts. I think it like really helps bring the story to life. Oh, there we go. Matt
Yeah, that's it.
Lautner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know he was doing voice work, but good for
No,
him.
but he did a great job.
Anyways, I realized I got a little bit ahead of myself.
Oh
This
yeah,
was about the
there's
covers.
one slide ahead.
Yeah, so we can move on. I already had my little rant.
Um,
I
First
saw someone.
chapter. What?
Let's talk about the first chapter because I saw someone else say this in the comments that when it first started, you like weren't sure about where the story was going because the story opens when I'm like worried this vet is gonna like euthanize this dog, and I'm like, just like hold on a second,
Yeah,
like what is
I will close
happening?
this book right now.
Yeah, I will stop this right now, but like thank goodness that wasn't the case, and he was actually a huge softie and ended up keeping the dog, and everything was well with the world. But it was like a little bit like jarring right away to be like, oh no. But yes, Becca's right. There was the trigger warnings that talked about the dog is always okay, which
Yeah.
I like appreciated. And I did know that about Abby's books. I know she's a huge dog lover. All of her books are very like animal friendly. So I wasn't like that worried, but I was also like a little worried because you just never know. Um, but I did love that we got a real glimpse at like the two characters with their like little meet cute. And I also think it was important to like realize that first impressions aren't always the best indication of who someone is. And I really like that they touched on that like Xavier was having a horrible day and maybe didn't leave the best impression, and sometimes that happens. So I kind of like that we didn't get this like perfect story where everyone's like on their best.
I I found that I never would have guessed the occupation of Samantha in the book.
No,
Like,
I never would have.
like I kept waiting to hear what it was because she was like, they got into it pretty quickly, but
Yeah.
you kind of like just know she's like an online presence at some early, and then I was like mustard,
Yeah.
but then I
That
was
made me
like, but
laugh.
that's like my dream job is to
Yeah.
like
Maybe not mustard, but
no,
like
but like just like talk to
coming up with
people
funny puns.
in group chats and
Yeah.
and post online. That's like my dream.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I really liked their little meet cute. And the
Yeah,
part about the cat was like really cute. Like I saw some comments that they didn't like the way that Xavier handled the kitten situation, saying that he should be, or she, the cat should be put down. Um, and as I can totally see that like argument of why that would bother some people. Like I can see where they're coming from to be upset by that. I think the way I look at it is just that he knew the cat would suffer
yeah,
greatly, and he's had bad experiences with people being
right.
like the worst. And so,
Like Jess
I mean,
said,
and
it's going to be hard to work
yeah,
there on a good day. So
but I think also we need to recognize like he got it wrong and he admitted he got it wrong, and like no one's perfect. Like
yeah,
he made a judgment call and then he realized that he was wrong about Samantha.
yeah,
And anyways, I think we can see like where his head was at with the diagnosis
yeah,
and the recommendation of what he said. But I really liked Samantha's attitude and just her like I'm gonna prove him wrong
yeah.
attitude.
I I thought it was all their interactions were hilarious in the beginning, and
Yeah.
like he was just so moody, and she was just like, I'm gonna prove him wrong all the
Yeah.
time,
They
and
really set him up as this like super grump, but
yeah,
like he wasn't
he
that
really
grumpy.
wasn't for
It
like
he
after
was
like
grumpy for
chapter
like a
three.
chapter.
Yeah, after chapter three, he was fine,
But then I'm like maybe he was just in a bad mood because of
right?
the previous lady.
Right,
Like,
because she was the worst.
yeah. Anyways, but moving on, as I was mentioning, he did admit that he was wrong.
Yeah,
and he donated. I was thinking though, like, we don't even know how he knew.
Yeah.
Like, did he just stumble across it? Did it like sit on his conscience and he was like Googling?
Right.
Like, how did he
Yeah.
do
How
we
did he?
know? Did I miss how we knew?
I don't. I don't remember. I didn't go back and look, but I don't remember other than that he just ends up donating.
Yeah. And saying she was right. Don't forget that part.
And yeah, and the number of times I've had to be that that person who says you're right,
Yeah.
and every time you're so happy about it.
Oh no, nothing feels better.
um, but yeah, Samantha did seem to have a lot going on in her life. Every time she talks to someone, you get like a little bit more, and you're like, well, she's got she's got a lot.
Yeah. I like this mindset. In my mind, the girls from the front
Oh yeah,
office told him. I love that.
um,
And I can totally see
I
that.
think they were my favorite two characters of the whole
I
book.
loved them. They were amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I felt like these comments were important to highlight because I don't know how it was necessarily in our chat, but in the internet world, I have never seen more hate for such an insignificant part of a book. The amount of hate that the recent comments got in the book, I don't understand it. I understand people have like feelings about pop culture being mentioned in books. It doesn't bother me because these books are like written for a specific time. Like they're not gonna be timeless. So like doesn't bother me. I like the little nods to pop culture. But I was like the people like online were just like saying it was like the whole book and I was like, it was two
Yeah.
comments and I thought it was funny. I thought it was
Yeah.
a cute little nod to a popular book, and I didn't think anything about it. Like, I just moved on, you know? Like, it didn't impact.
There was another comment I didn't put it in, but I almost put it in, and the person was like, "I've never read the books, but I looked up Resand, and now I get it." So
Yeah,
then today, when I was putting together the slides, I looked it up, and I was like, "Oh, I guess that makes sense."
yeah. Anyways, I get, like, why it could be bothersome for some, but I just didn't think it was, like, that big of a deal. That, like, people were saying they, like, stopped reading because of that, and I think that's a bit of a.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to stop reading
I
because
mean,
of.
to each their own, but I don't
I
know.
didn't really get it, but like it didn't make
Yeah,
or
but,
break the
like,
book for me.
yeah, I don't know. Anyways, let's talk about their first date. I thought it was such a fun date. I love how they both just didn't want it to end. And I thought the boat with the dogs was such a cute start. Like, it was like a safe date because they were around other people. She got to see him in a different element. And I think it really changed. That's when the perspective shift with Xavier, where like he's not this grumpy guy that everyone thinks he is. Like he's like a giant softie about dogs and he like donates a lot of his time. And I feel like we just like really started learning more about him. Like he shows up to her place with a succulent. Like I just think that's quite a cute little. I don't know. I thought their date was really cute.
Yeah, I thought the sister was kind of funny. Like the Dateline comments and all
Yeah.
that. Like you could tell that she like really like they were close because of it, and
Yeah.
then with their whole interaction. I felt like some of the things that happened, like the phone falling in the water, I
Yeah.
was like, this is a bit ridiculous, but whatever. I'm here for
But
it.
also, I would totally do that.
True.
You know
I'm pretty
I
sure you
would.
haven't done
Yeah.
that.
So like it is a little bit outlandish, but as that girl,
Yeah,
it
that's
would
true.
and you would be the guy who would jump in and get it.
That's
So
true. Yeah.
maybe not that far off.
Um, we would also be the couple to get locked in an escape room.
Yeah, we'll get to that part. Yeah, this was just like more about the date. It seemed like a lot of people really liked the date. I thought the aspect where his friends just randomly showed up was hilarious. It'd be
Yeah.
so embarrassing if that was me, but also I think it made it more fun, and I know, like, I feel like you got to see him again in like a different element and how
And it
he like
just
opened
kind of
up.
showed how much people like him in
Yeah, that's what I
general.
mean. You
Like,
got to see this whole other side of people who care and cherish for him. He's
um,
not just some grumpy douchebag.
yeah. And yeah, and Samantha just kind of goes with it when,
She was so chill. Like, she was just like fine with
yeah.
everything. I could never, but she did great. She just like rolled with the punches.
Yeah.
But also, I think like her mindset going into this date probably led up to that.
Yeah.
Like, she was thinking this is just like a fun night before I leave town.
Right.
Like, I don't care what
Right.
happens,
We're,
you
we're
know?
just gonna have a good time, and then I'll head out and never
Yeah.
see any of them again.
Yeah.
Um, and then
And
and
then
then they
we get
get stuck.
to the escape room. As soon as I read the escape room part, first of all, I was like, of course they're gonna get locked in.
Yeah.
But also, I was like, this would be your worst nightmare.
Actually, so like maybe a year ago, our neighbors that we're friends with invited us to go to an escape room, and I was like, absolutely not. And they were like, why not? And I was like, because I need to be able to get out. And then they convinced me that there would be an emergency exit. I still didn't go, but um, this whole time reading the book, I was like, but there would just be an emergency exit. It's 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 safety codes. They have to be able to get out. So that kind of ruined that part for me a little bit.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, but I did have to. Well, I didn't Google the song, but I did ask you and said that I didn't know what it was. So I was talking to Scott about this while I was making dinner one night, and I said I didn't know what the song was, and he was like, "You'd know it if you heard it." And then he put it on, like on our speaker in our kitchen, and I did know it once I heard it, and then he put it on again, and then he put it on again, and I heard the song 3 times in a row, and I was like, okay, I
Stop
get
it!
it
I get
now.
it.
Yeah. So I can't imagine like if you were actually in the room hearing it. Like I
Yeah.
would have pulled that speaker so
Yeah.
much faster than they did
They were
after
very
hearing the
patient.
song.
Like, anyways, it was stuck in my head after a while.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we get a bit of backstory on Xavier, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be an emotional story at that point,
Oh, you
because
knew that?
he kind of holds back, and I was like, something like brutal has to be hidden under this, because he's like pretty open with her for the most part,
Yeah.
and then for him to like hold back, I was like, oh man, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, I knew the kid was gonna forget about them pretty
I did
quick.
too.
The voice actor made him seem like very flippant about everything, and so
Yeah.
I don't know how the physical book was, but I was
There was
like,
like
oh no,
a idea,
a
like you
vibe,
kind of a
yeah.
vibe that it was gonna happen.
And then they leave.
Then
I
they
guess we
leave.
can talk about that briefly. So, um, she's like, don't contact me again, and then she goes to her life that's like super sad.
Yeah.
and
Super sad.
and that at that point in the book, it was going so quick that um, I was like, how do we like how is there more book, like how did they resolve this? It just like
Yes.
didn't make sense to me how that I was only like, I don't know, like a quarter of the way into the book, but also I felt like I was rooting for them so much, so it felt like such like a gap at that point.
Yeah.
um,
I feel like after reading about like their first date especially and just how like it kind of didn't end and it got a lot deeper than they thought it would, and they just had this like kind of really cool connection, and then obviously she leaves, and I understand her like obviously not wanting to like continue because she's kind of starting a whole new life. But also, their connection, it reminded me a lot of like our connection,
Yeah.
and like just thinking about if that had happened to us when we first
Yeah.
started, like I think we would have felt the same,
Right.
like knowing that there's something there.
Yeah. You just
But
we knew very early and
yeah,
would have made it work
yeah,
one way or another.
yeah,
So I think that's why I related to the book.
yeah, I think so too. Um, I really liked this comment because I I said it a little bit earlier in my review, but I liked that a lot of their problems were rooted in like real situations and scenarios. Like it wasn't some like out of the box something that wouldn't happen situation. Like Xavier's money situation was like so real, and something that I'm sure a lot of like people in his situation could attest to, like this commenter. It does cost a lot to start your own business, especially when you have a brick and mortar location, and then adding on like staff and equipment and previous loans, and like I just liked that it was like real
Yeah.
stuff.
He he got into to like the vet world, but it's one of those things you don't make money right away. And
Yeah.
having worked with a lot of businesses in the past, it really it's a toss up if you're gonna ever make money on it, even with all of the money you can make as a vet or as a in whatever field you're in. So
Yeah. Well, and I think it just comes back to like the root of the book, which was right person, wrong time.
right,
And it just seemed like everything was against them. But yeah. Um, moving on. When we were going through comments, I like Scott and I were going over this one, and I do not remember anything about the crow reference. I had to ask him like,
yeah,
what is this even referring to? I still don't remember it, but I reading it back like in the picture there, I think it's so cute. And
yeah,
but I also think that like while just like thinking about it, I think it puts together like a bigger picture, and especially like I'm gonna probably keep referring to it, but their connection really reminded me of you and I, and we've spent some time not being in the same city for a while,
yeah,
and like what she's saying is like so true, because like it doesn't matter like what gifts were sent or whatever, like it would never take the place of like your presence
right,
being there. Like
yeah,
nothing else would
right. You can send
matter.
a million things and it doesn't really matter. Like it's
Yeah.
nice, but
Yeah. It is nice, but it's not the same.
to Megan's comment, I've been trying to befriend the crows in our neighborhood as well, but so far they just take the peanuts and leave. So no luck yet.
Okay, we have to talk about the mouse part
Oh,
because
that's the
I was
first time I
sitting on the
laughed out loud
couch.
at a book in a long time.
I was sitting on the couch. You had already read it,
Yeah,
and I was just sitting on the couch, and I just like burst out laughing, and I think you knew exactly what part I was at. You're
yeah,
like, the mouse, and I was like, the mouse.
yeah,
And I think like it was even funnier, but like kind of in a mortifying way, because I would have totally been the Samantha
oh
in
yeah,
that situation. Like I would have been freaking out, and you would have been Xavier laughing your
yeah.
head off, thinking it was hilarious.
We remember in our old house we had the mouse, and
Yes.
it was very similar. So
Yes.
we saw this mouse. I look over. I was playing video games like always, and I look over my shoulder, and on our stove, this mouse is like hopping along it, and we stayed up till 3 in the morning trying to catch it, and Megan's screaming her head off every time we get close. But we were like hiding behind the couch, waiting for it to come back out every time it would scurry away. And then
Like stalking
we
this
we
mouse.
finally got it, and we put it into um into a bag, like a plastic bag, and then put it in the trunk of our car because Megan was like, we can't kill it. And then
No.
we drove half an hour from our house and then put it at the side of the road, opened the bag, and it hops like 3 times and then kind of looks back at us. And Megan was like, it's actually kind of cute though. and
It
then
was cute, but
and then we were done with the mouse forever.
I
But
did not want it
somehow
in
we
my
only had
house.
one. I don't know how we got away with that, but
Yeah, it's the only time we've ever had to deal with
yeah.
mouse.
Anyways, it
Anyway,
really reminded me of that.
it did remind me of that as well. Yeah, it was. But can you imagine like driving?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Oh,
ooh,
you'd be that. Actually, that happened to our neighbor too. Remember, she had the mouse in her car
yes,
and just got out of the car and ran away.
yeah. I don't blame her. Okay, let's talk about their relationship because I feel like this is where people had problems with the book. And I agree that it wasn't feasible.
No.
And it caused me a lot of stress while I was reading it because I couldn't find a solution because it was two very real problems and they had very good reason to be apart and both couldn't give. So like I couldn't find
Yeah.
a solution, like it was no win. Like
Yeah. I kept thinking, there's no way this resolves.
I was just like I don't know how she's written herself into a hole. It can't
Yeah.
resolve. And I know like her books always end on a super happily ever after, but I was just like I can't see it. I can't get out. Like this isn't gonna work. And it felt really like daunting and it was really heavy. But all that being said, I also kind of got it. And every relationship is obviously going to be different. So it might not be this way for everyone. And I saw some people like in the comments saying it was like toxic and unhealthy and like selfish and stuff like that, which I can totally see like where they're coming from if that was like their perspective on it. But for me, when I found my person, I would never give that up despite circumstances telling me that I should. I'm one, too stubborn, and two, the pain of being apart and the struggle to make it work, while very real and like very hard, in the end it wouldn't matter if I could only be with that person for like a couple of hours. I would make anything work just to have that small time. So like I can understand the criticism, but I also can't because I would be them. Like that would be me,
Yeah.
you know?
100%.
Like no matter how hard it was, I wouldn't, you know?
Yeah. I
Um
I agree. Like it
yeah.
just has to work sometimes.
Yeah. Um right. I mentioned this in one of my captions as well. We're gonna get back into the like relationship dynamics, but just as a short little reprieve from that, I really liked the short chapters of the book. I found it like made it really easy to fly through
Yeah.
the
I
book. Like
flew
I
through this book.
yeah, you read it really quick. I read it really quick. I think I read it in 2 days. And I liked how the chapters ended in a way that I wanted to just keep going. Um but yeah, another big part of the book outside of the relationship dynamics was the situation with the mom. And we haven't really touched on that yet, but it was a really big part of the book.
Yeah.
And I know we talked a little bit about Xavier's situation, not as much yet, but with the mom situation, I just found that so tough. And like, I haven't dealt with someone having dementia, so like, I can't speak to that, nor will I try to it because I can't imagine the reality of that situation. I can't imagine like the toll that would take. I think the book did a really good job of emulating that toll, and just on like a very minor like how I could relate in the smallest amount of way possible is I recently had to go back to my hometown and help my mom after she had back surgery, and was kind of like in a like caregiver role while I was there. And having that fall on your shoulders while like so important is also like incredibly heavy. And I liked that the book touched on
They
that.
made it very heavy.
Like Samantha chose to be there and chose to make that a priority. Um, but yeah, like I just feel like it was really well handled.
Uh, Having been somewhat close to it, I have heard it described as the long goodbye,
Yeah.
and I think that's a very um, apt description of it.
Yeah.
Um, and I know how heavily it can weigh, and um, and yeah, I think they did a really good job with the difficulty of it.
Yeah. And I think I kind of want to bring this back to like how this relates to their relationship because I saw it in the comments and I also saw it on our Fable that Xavier gave way more to the relationship than Samantha did. And I well, no, I can't really see the perspective because I just think it's a different situation. While Xavier had like his own struggles keeping him in Minnesota, Samantha was like a full-time caregiver to someone who required her attention all the time. She couldn't as easily as Xavier get up and go. And I felt like she
Mm-hmm.
gave where she could. And I don't I think it's fine to have like a different perspective on that, obviously. But I just think that Samantha's situation was a little bit different
Yeah,
and a little bit more demanding. Xavier could give a little more easily than she could.
I I think like for sure I kind of could see where people are coming from with that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that um, what I would have liked to see, and they did eventually do it, but was like her family obviously knew she was like really happy with this guy, and they didn't seem to be like trying to push her in that direction that would help her to be happy. And
Yeah.
so, in terms of her, and still Tristan like pays for her ticket, and that
Yeah.
whole debacle happens on its
Yeah.
own. But until that point, there wasn't a lot of like heavy support from them,
Yes.
um, to be like, oh, you have to see this through. Like you're so happy with it.
Yeah. Um, this part like really broke my heart. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine being in that situation and having to relive that moment of grief over and over again. Like not to mention just the shock of it all. Like I just can't imagine constantly having to like go over that. And I think this part of the book, and I think there's a comment a little bit later that touches on it, but this was a part where some people like really didn't like the way that Xavier was portrayed in this whole situation.
Yeah,
Um, but sticking with just like the grandma thing, I just thought like it was almost like the hits just kept coming with this
yeah,
book. I
they,
think I said that to you at one
yeah,
point while I was reading it because it was just like everything was so heavy.
yeah,
And like there was moments of comedic relief, but like overall it was a lot heavier than I anticipated.
mm-hmm. And I think both of these comments together, like you have not only the burden of the grandma dying, but also that they have to keep reliving that memory over and over and kind of gauge when to tell her or how to tell her or if they
Yeah.
need to tell her. And it's
Yeah.
just so heavy.
Yeah.
And then to your point of like the hits keep coming, um, I think it comes back to what we say sometimes because it seems like everything goes wrong and it's just like um, that we used all of our luck on each other and so
Yeah.
it all has to like this is why bad things keep happening is because Xavier and Samantha used all of their luck in finding each other.
Yeah, it's something that we always say to each other just to get through the hard times.
And then she eats the earbud.
And then she eats the earbud. Speaking of comedic relief, there was good moments of
Yeah.
comedic relief, like despite the heaviness.
I was like, if they don't play that song through her stomach, then I'm gonna be so mad. And then they immediately do.
Yeah. No, I appreciated the moments that like gave us a little bit of levity through the
Yeah.
story.
They were very needed.
Yeah. Anyways, bringing it back to what I wanted to talk about, this next comment was the one that I was referring to, about how they didn't like the way that Xavier was treated during the funeral. I found this comment really interesting just because it's not the way I read the situation at all. And just to like get like a little bit personal, Scott and I have both had like our fair share of heavy family emergencies.
Just a few.
And when it's not your immediate family dealing with those things, your role as a partner, in my perspective, is support. Support for that person, for the family who's grieving or hurt or going through something, and you recognize that the situation is horrible and you can do literally nothing to change it. So you do whatever you can to make it just a little better. You do the things no one thinks of. You feed people because they don't think about to do it when they're in grief. And like there are some people that just come so naturally to, like for Scott, like he's the person that will just like do things that you don't think about doing when you're in a stressful situation. And some people just do it, and I got that sense from Xavier. And
he takes joy in doing
he
that.
does take joy in it,
or satisfaction or whatever in that moment.
Yeah. And also, like, just to like add on to the point, like someone said this in the comments as well, they did thank him and appreciate him. I know specifically Samantha like was sure to mention it to him. So yeah, I would argue that I didn't read it as being one-sided or he was being taken advantage of. I think it was like a very specific situation that until you like go through something like that with a partner by your side and you see what they do while you don't have the capacity to do those things, it was like it's a really beautiful thing for someone to do for someone else. And that was my take on it, at least. But yeah, to like kind of lean into Samantha's comment here, not maybe about this part, but just that like through the whole book he was doing all these wonderful things and she doesn't really do them in return. I can see that totally. Like she didn't do a lot for him, but I think some people are just givers. Like Scott is that person. Like there's like, yeah, like Megan's saying, his love language, if you like subscribe to that way of thinking, is acts of service. Like Scott is that guy. Like you love to take care of people and like do things to show people you care about them, and like that makes you feel joy.
Yeah.
And like you get so much out of that, and I think I felt that from Xavier. He reminded me a lot of you in that way, not in other ways, but just that
I'm not grumpy when I walk in a room.
you're not grumpy when you walk in a room, no. But you are very much the like, you know, do it. And I feel like I don't do the same things in return for you, but I show you I care in other ways.
Yeah.
And I think Samantha did that as well.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe
don't
not
sell yourself short.
Maybe not just like an obvious way, like, you know, outwardly, like
Yeah.
sending him things.
You do definitely make sure I'm okay and take care of me in reciprocation as well, though.
I just mean it's not always going to be like the same. Like
Yeah.
you don't make me a playlist and I make you a playlist back.
Right.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
we show our love in different ways.
Right.
And I show you in a way that means more to you.
Right.
And it's just going to be different. That's the way I read it, at least.
Yeah.
But I can see.
He also didn't really want anything, or for the moment until he burns himself out. He didn't really need anything. It seemed so.
Yeah, and I think like Jennifer's saying, like she like cleaned his house when he was sick and stayed with him and got him to the hospital, and like, you know, like she did do things for him. I think we just didn't see it in such obvious, like, outwardly, like,
Yeah.
you know, gifts and stuff like he did for her. But I will like say that it wasn't as obvious that Samantha was doing things for
Yeah.
Xavier.
I can see how you would get that perspective for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, I think it's also important to talk about the family dynamic, which you touched on a little bit, on like wishing that her family had stepped up a little bit more for Samantha,
Yeah.
and why she was so like stuck there. I felt
Yeah.
like her family wasn't the best. However, I liked that was the family dynamic, because sometimes like my issue with certain romance books is like especially like small town romance, which this one wasn't small town, but like sometimes in romance books the families all feel like super close and best friends and everything's amazing and they have the best family and they're always there for each other, but that's like not always the case.
Yeah.
And this family, like, while they were there for, like, it was messy. Like,
yeah, they were mad at each other half the book.
Drama, and people were selfish and they spoke out in anger, and I liked that Abby didn't shy away from that, because like
Right.
that's real family. Like sometimes you snap, sometimes you say the wrong thing because that's your family, and you know you're not going to be perfect with your family because they're the people you are supposed to like feel the most comfortable with, and you have all this stress of like all living in the same house, caring for a loved one who has dementia, and I just feel like there's a lot of heightened emotions.
Yeah.
So like of course tempers are going to run high and people are going to act out and act wrong. Yeah. And I think the dad situation was so tough. Like it was
complicated and messy, and
yeah,
but you kind of understood it at the same time. Like,
I did, yeah, which I did surprise me because I'm usually like really firm in my belief about
yeah.
like cheating, but I agree with Becca in this case. Like I didn't really view it as cheating, and I don't know if I like necessarily like fully agree with it. I'm not sure where I stand on it.
Yeah.
But I can understand and empathize with his situation completely. And I think that I really liked the growth of the family, that they had to have that like come to moment where they all had to like talk about it because it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that that was included in the book.
Yeah. And I thought the book was going to turn differently then, that she'd be able to free herself up and go back. That's kind of the direction I thought it was going to go.
I did too. I was like, oh, maybe we have a solution after all.
Yeah, and then it didn't go that way. But
no.
And then we had Xavier's family, who was just
the worst.
The worst, and even messier.
Yeah. I also reading this comment, I love that they got Xavier's dad audited.
Yeah.
That made me laugh so much when they were talking about all the little things that the siblings had done to like protect Xavier as one of their own, you know, and like stand up for him. So I really liked the inclusion of those like little things, because that was much earlier in the book when they were talking about doing them, and then you find out they actually followed through with them.
Yeah, it's just the family was very funny. And when they were, and then they had so much drama around it, everything as well.
Yeah. And I think that's another part of like how Xavier was cared for by the family. Like it was this it was a quieter way, but he was still theirs.
Right.
So I kind of liked that. Speaking of like what you said, with that you thought that we had found a solution.
Yeah.
With her getting fired, I thought, oh, like Becca was saying, like maybe this is how we like get our solution. But again, no. It was still I I don't know if I thought it would be like the solution in this case, like that she would move back to Minnesota. I never really saw her moving back to
Yeah.
Minnesota, just because even if her mom did end up in a facility, I don't think she would have left. I think
Right.
she wanted the time she had with her mom.
Yeah.
So, but at this point, I was just like so desperate for some kind of solution
Right.
or hope, because everything had been so like
Just keeps going
heavy
wrong.
and so much heartbreak with them, like missing each other and hardly getting to see each other. And I still couldn't see a solution. So I was just like, yeah, I was really like, and by this point, you're getting to the end, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, where's
Yeah,
this
we're getting pretty
going?
close. And I'm like, how are we gonna wrap this up?
Yeah. Um,
Then he has
this
his
was an,
breakdown.
this was another like situation that I saw some people not love in the book, is the like kind of breakup situation that they should have broken up, and that it was selfish to stay together. Um, and I especially saw that a lot with regards to Samantha. I I think that was a little bit unfair. The like targeted that Samantha was selfish for not breaking up with him. And it bothers me when this happens in books, that like if she would have broken up with him, it would have bothered me more, because I hate when people make decisions for other people. Like Xavier's a grown man. He can decide what's too much for him. And I just like imagined myself in that situation with you.
Yeah.
And like I wouldn't have broken up either.
Yeah.
Like I would trust that if it became too much for you, you would communicate that.
Yeah.
And we'd have that.
Right.
Like you have that with me as well.
Right.
Like, and if she would have made the decision to break up, it would have led into like this whole kind of miscommunication thing, which I hate. And I appreciate that they had a rational conversation
Right. They're like,
about
we
it.
can't go as hard as we have been, so we're gonna have
And
to make it work a different way.
they were like, hey, this is hard, it's difficult, we're both suffering, but I don't want to give up yet.
The only thing that I didn't like about that chapter is that they kind of made it seem like they were gonna break up and then didn't. And I
Yeah.
would have liked if they would have just had the discussion without the will
I
they,
didn't
won't they
really
of it.
I didn't really get the like will they won't they,
I did a little bit.
like a little, but like I think it was more like she was questioning, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And I can see how that would be
Yeah, yeah.
hard. But yeah, I think I just like that they had a rational conversation
Yeah.
about it. And that no one made a decision for the other person.
Right.
Dr. Hank.
Did
Let's
not
talk about him.
did not see that coming at all.
I didn't either,
should have.
but not entirely. I knew there had to be more to him,
Yeah.
but I didn't see that specific connection. But I love that it came full circle for Xavier. And I also really like that Xavier like took his time to come to his own decision. He didn't
Right.
just like do what Dr. Hank said right away. Like
Yeah.
he took his time.
He had to think about it.
Yeah. But also I just love Dr. Hank.
Yeah.
Like what a sweetie.
You know, he reminded me. You remember for the shows that I've listened to, Whitey from
Yes.
One Tree Hill. That's who I thought of him as when I was hearing the voice actor do his voice.
Yeah.
That, anyways, that's how I envisioned him.
Huh. That's funny. I wish I had done the audiobook now.
They kind of sounded similar.
Yeah. Oh no, I just really liked him. He was just so like wholesome.
Yeah.
And just like a good guy. I loved the whole like this one moment of kindness from years and years ago made this huge impact on this kid's life. And now
Yeah.
he gets to kind of do it again.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I
It
just
was
like
really. Is it? I was like, oh, that's convenient, but I was like, but I like it.
Yeah, it was convenient, but I did like it hit me in the feels. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. And then we have everything wraps up with a nice bow, and he starts another practice.
Yes.
And then they find the jewelry.
And then they find the jewelry. I was wondering, like, I mean, I was like, we have to find the jewelry,
Yeah,
but
there's
I didn't know where it would be.
yeah,
But I love that it was the mom who found it, right?
yeah. It was interesting because my I remember my mom telling me a story. I forget what the relation. One of her aunts or something, and they kept losing things, but it was banana peels that they couldn't find.
What?
Yeah, and her. So every time they would bring her, like she was in like a nursing home, and they would bring her like fruit, and then they would come back to get everything, and they couldn't find the banana peels, and they couldn't figure out where they were going, and then they eventually found them in like some pull-out desk thing, like in the back of it. So I guess it's like it makes sense. Like I had
Yeah.
heard about this kind of like lost items thing, and it's like very common. So it was,
Huh.
I was like, it has to come back at some point.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Um, and then yeah, then they moved there and have the two practices, which was um, it was a fine ending for me.
Yeah, let's move on and
So
talk
let's
about
talk
the
about the
ending.
ending.
Um, I liked the ending because it was a happy ending, and we finally got a solution that was being teased for 3/4 of the book.
Yeah,
But I did feel like it was too rushed for how much heartbreak we went through. I wish there was a little bit more time to like really flush out the ending and not just like wrap it in a bow and be like, "Okay, we're done." Like,
yeah,
I just wanted a little more.
yeah. I thought so too. Like they spent so much time apart that I was
Yeah.
like, we could have used a little more time together for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, one thing that you and I talked about that we haven't talked about yet is in the beginning, I forget when it was exactly, maybe when they were in the locked room, but she was talking about how she wants a person that like she can say one thing and the other person knows exactly what that means.
yeah,
You know, like these little relationship
yeah,
inside jokes almost. Or like you can like someone's talking and you both look at each other and you know
right.
what the other person.
Meg and I can have conversations without saying a word, like
Yes. I
across a
like
room.
that. I like that aspect of the book. And I do like that they had that at the ending. It was super cheesy, but like
Yeah,
I liked it. I liked the inclusion of the song throughout. I thought it was cute.
I'm assuming people have a word. So what's your word that we won't understand, but you will burst out laughing if you said it to your partner?
I feel like we have so many.
We have. I'm trying to think of what one I would go with.
We
Like,
have a lot of looks, that's for
yeah.
sure. But yeah, I
If we
think
hear the word inventor, then I just lose it. And
yeah.
it won't be funny to anyone, so I won't even like, try to explain it. But
No.
to me, it's hilarious.
But I love that like it's such a real aspect of a relationship and it's just such a small thing, but it's so true. Like that's the big thing is knowing those little things about the other person and being able to read them and knowing what one word means and
Yeah,
like that means so much more almost.
yeah,
Having
yeah,
like such a close relationship with someone that you can do
yeah.
that.
And I think
And I
that's one
like
of the
it.
things I liked about the book was, like, and like I didn't think the story was like incredibly well written or anything, but it
No.
had like a depth to it on that side of things, um, where I felt like it understood at least what I find important in a relationship, which is that just those shared
Yeah.
memories that like the times that we've cried laughing on the floor because of
Yeah.
something so dumb
Yeah.
and we still laugh about it.
Yeah. I think like what you said, I think this book it wasn't the best written book I've ever read in my life, but it had a lot of depth to it and it made me laugh and it made me really sad and it made me think about our relationship a
Yeah,
lot and I could feel a lot of similarities for us, and I
Yeah.
think that's why I liked it, is
Yeah.
just because I don't always see you and I represented in every
Right.
book I read, but in this one I got a little glimpse of us,
You
and I
don't
think
think
that
that
was
I'm some like dangerous warrior who's gonna.
sorry, you're not a Reese, but
No, I'm
that's
not.
okay.
I'm not the shadowy alpha male of the books you read.
Anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about what challenges this book would fit into. Um, Obviously, for the A to Z, we have S for Say You'll Remember Me. In the fully booked reading challenge, there aren't a lot. It could be recommended on social media, a new release, since it literally just came out. I think that's kind of it. Um, on the cover, there is a sun, so you could do that. Scott and I had a debate over whether this was a dock or a pier. So if you think they're the same thing, you could consider it a dock and
They're
put it for
definitely
that
the
one.
same thing.
And for Reading Rainbow, I think it would go under multicolor because there's just too many colors. I don't think it's like one
Yeah.
singular color. There's just too many. So I would say the multicolor option. Um, Going on, Megan said, I'm interested to hear you guys' rankings of all the club books at the end of the year, which is really interesting that you say that because we thought it would be really fun to do a little mid-year recap on the ratings for the books we've read so
I
far
should have
this
put
year.
the titles of the book in hindsight, but
That's okay. The first one, the 4.3, is from January, and then the next one is February, and then the last one is March. And then if you wanted to add in this one, it would be 4 stars. So you can kind of see how they all compare to each other. In April, we had 42 reviews, so
yeah,
we had a little bit more
going
for this
back up.
book than we did for the previous two. Nothing will compare to the January.
No,
That was like
we got to get
a big
back up to those numbers again.
yeah. But I'm a big like data person, so this
Yeah,
was fun for me to see, and we
yeah.
thought it'd be fun for you guys to see as well.
I'll put together some charts for the end of the year for real though.
Yeah, we can do like a little wrap up of the
Graphs
book
and
club.
data.
Yeah. Before you guys all go, we have a couple of things to go over. First up, let's just talk about the next book. The next book we're going to read is God of the Woods. And as I mentioned last month, the selections for the May book were all the books that got second place in all of the previous polls. So God of the Woods won with 34% of the vote. It was actually pretty close this time. The next highest was 27%. So it was pretty split. So yeah, next book is God of the Woods. I have already read this book.
I have
My
not.
I have like a physical book club on my street, and we read this book a couple months ago. So I've already read it. So I don't know how much I'll be able to participate in Fable, but I'll be really interested to see what you guys think of it. Um, so yeah. One thing that we do need to discuss before moving on, there's actually two things. But the first one is if we follow our typical schedule for book club, then we would be meeting on May 28th. But unfortunately, that date doesn't work for Scott and I as we have some visitors staying with us. So we wouldn't be able to do it that day. So we have two options. We can do it on a different date, which would be the Friday evening, which would be May 30th. Or we could just push it 1 week and do it the following Wednesday, which would be June 4th. So let me know which works for you guys, and we can make that work. And yeah, I might do also, I could maybe do like a poll in Fable, but I figure like while you guys are
Yeah,
here,
you guys are the ones that show up.
because you guys are the ones that show up, just let us know whether you prefer the Friday or the Wednesday, and we can go from there. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I also mentioned this last book club, but for June, I would really like to do a themed selection of books, and I want to do LGBTQ plus books for June. I think it'd be really fun to do that for June. So if you have any suggestions for books that fit within that theme, please send them my way. You can DM me or you can leave a comment on the Fable. Probably steer away from the super popular ones because we've probably already read a lot of them. So if you have some that are maybe a little lesser known, that would be, I think, fun to like kind of get those books out there. So I see Seven Husbands of Evelyn
I've
Hugo.
already
So
read
and
it.
I have both already read that, so we probably won't do that one. But read it because it's so good.
It
Do
is
it
so
on
good.
audio. It's one of my favorite books of all times. Like changed my life. I'm not even joking. So, read it for sure. But if you have suggestions, like I said, please let me know because I'm gonna be doing that poll probably mid-May. So let me know. I have a couple of suggestions already of my own, but I don't have enough for the full poll. So let me know. And I think that's everything that we have on our list.
Um, Anyone have any random questions before we go?
Oh yeah, anyone have any random little things?
Any any final thoughts?
I didn't see if there was a date that was more popular. Was it?
Um, Most people said they didn't care. Either. I don't have a preference. June works better.
Megan wants to know why we lived in different cities. We lived in different cities because Scott worked at a zoo and I worked in our hometown and we were both saving to get married. And the zoo was in a different city.
Yeah.
And well, you lived in that city where we went to college and I had moved back
Yeah.
home to do it, but
The zoo shop. No, it it was something. I'll tell you that. We
so many memories.
I worked right in the African lion safari. If you want to look it up, I had to sweep monkeys off of cars before they went through a gate. That was the most common job that I did.
Lots of cleaning pens.
Lots of cleaning pens on the back end of it, but
Didn't you
most
see a giraffe give birth or something?
yeah.
Ew. What's Eddie's writing for Say You'll Remember Me? That's a very good question. He's like passed out cold on my office floor, so I'll ask him when he wakes up.
Where did I go to school? I went to Fanshawe for business in London, Ontario. I'm assuming the LOL what is about sweeping monkeys off of cars. That,
It's like
but
a
maybe
drive-through zoo,
yeah, it's a drive-through zoo, and basically
like a safari, I guess.
there was a section for monkeys, and then there was a section for the African
Lion.
savanna, and I would stand at the gate that led from the jungle, as we called it, and then on the other side was the savannah, and the monkeys would be on like pickups and stuff, and I would have this pole, and I would say, "Go on, get," and they would
They would
run
like
back to all their other monkey friends.
destroy cars.
And if they
Like
got too
rip them
close, I would have to
apart.
hit the button and get the gate to close so that they didn't escape. Yeah, that I guess in hindsight, I didn't explain it very well.
Yeah, I feel like well, it's a hard thing to explain.
Yeah,
It's
but
such a random situation.
that was my summer job.
Yep, good times.
Um, all right. Well,
Anyways, thank you all for joining us for book club. Once again, lovely to have you here, and I appreciated all of your insight on this book. I'm really excited to see what you guys will think about the next one.
yeah,
And
I think we've had really good
we
Fable
haven't done a
discussions
mystery
now,
yet,
and
which I'm really excited about.
oh, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Now
Yeah.
I have something to say on my
So new
initial thoughts.
genre.
Awesome.
But anyways, yes, thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you next time. I'll let you know what date we go with well in advance, so you guys have time to just make some plans.
Sounds good.
Anyways, thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.